All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Maureen, would you like to kick us off with a welcome?
I would be delighted. Um, my name is Maureen Whitler, and I'm president of the Council for Opportunity in Education. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, the pandemic isolation combined with this terrible winter weather in so many parts of the country is really making it difficult for so many low-income first-generation students and families, as well as for individuals with disabilities. And we are indeed fortunate that each of you that's joining us today are committed to making sure that these students, these adults who were thinking about going back to college or to high school don't have their educational dreams disrupted, don't have their hopes for educational opportunity and upward mobility permanently off track. I feel fortunate. I know our staff here on this Zoom meeting also feel fortunate that TRIO programs are positioned to make a real difference for tens of thousands of students as they continue to work really hard to maintain their hopes and their dreams for college opportunity, college graduation. And again, thank you for joining us today. Jonathan, back to you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, Maureen, for these words of welcome. So the TRIO programs are a set of college opportunity and success programs, and we'll hear about the details in a bit. Council for Opportunity in Education, we represent the grantees. So more than 1,000 institutions of higher education and nonprofits around the country that receive these competitive grants from the U.S. Department of Education to serve first-generation and low-income students. Here is our agenda for today. We will first hear some remarks from the TRIO Caucus co-chairs, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans. Then we will hear an overview and a history of the federal TRIO programs. We will, after that, hear an alumni staff panel. So these are TRIO alumni who are currently your colleagues serving on Capitol Hill today. And then we will break out into discussion groups to chat with the panelists in smaller groups, as well as other TRIO alumni working on Capitol Hill who we didn't have time to fit on the panel, but who will also have a chance to share their experiences. And you'll also hear from some TRIO staff members and other folks in small groups. So without further ado, why don't we turn now to the remarks from the Congressional TRIO Caucus. Just a bit of housekeeping. A common question I get, will you get the slides afterward? The answer is yes. And also, I noticed that many folks have been renaming themselves on Zoom. That's a helpful convention so we can quickly know who's who and call on each other. So if you could take a second and within your Zoom, go to rename, and you can keep your name and then in parentheses, the congressional office you work with, or if you're with COE. Also, if you're a TRIO alum, you can go ahead and put that in the parentheses as well. Okay, so we know who we have. And thank you so much. So we have a Congressional TRIO Caucus who are primary leaders on TRIO issues in the Senate and the House. And so we have some words of welcome from each of them. Let's hear now from the great state of Montana, Senator Jon Tester.
While we're queuing up the video, let me introduce myself. My name is Kim Jones. I'm the Executive Vice President at COE. And I had an opportunity a couple of years ago when meeting with Senator Tester, along with a TRIO student from Montana. In his office, he shared with us that he was bequeathed a piece of furniture from Senator Daniel Inouye from Hawaii, who had just recently been deceased. And in fact, that furniture had been given to Senator Inouye by then Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson, who of course ushered in the TRIO program. So in that moment, we sort of came full circle around TRIO. I see we have the video queued up, so go ahead and let it roll.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to share a few words with you today. I know I don't need to tell this group how critical TRIO programs are to helping low-income, first-generation students or folks with disabilities to be able to achieve their dreams of earning a college degree. In fact, I'm sure that TRIO is the reason many of you are where you are today, and that's incredible because it means the program does what it's supposed to do. In my home state of Montana, thousands of students participate in TRIO programs across the state to earn their degrees, jumpstart their careers, and make their families proud. And that's why it's been an honor to serve as co-chair of the Senate TRIO Caucus for so long, because this program is helping so many folks open new opportunities that weren't accessible to their parents and grandparents. And with college degrees under their belts, these students can bring new skills, knowledge, and perspectives back to their communities, or in many of your cases, to the halls of Congress. Growing up on my farm in Big Sandy, Montana, my parents always stressed the importance of education so much that I actually became a teacher. And it was through teaching that I got involved in the local school board, then the Montana State Senate, then the U.S. Senate. Education opened the doors necessary for me to get where I am today. And I'm certain that's the case for everyone attending this briefing. That's why TRIO is such a critical program. It creates opportunities for our nation's best and brightest who wouldn't otherwise have the resources that they need to be able to get a college education. So I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that this critical program has everything it needs to continue lifting up our next generation of leaders. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you to make it happen. Thanks again for inviting me to speak. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Senator Tester. And while we are queuing up our next words of welcome, I want to briefly introduce our Senate co-chair of the Congressional TRIO Caucus, who is Senator Susan Collins of Maine. Her staff member who is staffing the caucus is Rowan Boast. And Rowan, do you want to give a quick Zoom hello or a quick little Zoom wave to show us who you are? And she is the primary point of contact. Hi, Rowan.
How are you guys?
We're great. Whatever this is outside is nothing compared to Maine, right? So
Exactly.
we won't complain here. Thank you for your leadership on this. We really appreciate your and the Senator's strong support for TRIO. Okay, so without further ado, let's hear from Senator Collins.
Good morning. As co-chair of the Congressional TRIO Caucus, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this briefing. Thank you for your support of these vital programs. As our country faces the challenge of competing in the global economy during a persistent pandemic, it is more essential than ever that the doors to higher education be open to all. The federal TRIO programs have been key to expanding educational opportunity for nearly 60 years. Nationwide, nearly 3,200 TRIO programs help ensure that more than 800,000 underserved students have equal access to higher education. Maine's TRIO programs serve students from all over the state, increasing educational opportunities for first-generation, low-income, and disabled students. Since 2007, TRIO has expanded from 20 to 30 programs. TRIO now serves more than 7,500 students in our state. During my time in the Senate, I've been so inspired by the stories of TRIO students, and I've seen firsthand the positive impact of these programs on their lives. Maine is an excellent example of why these programs are so essential. Despite having one of the highest high school graduation rates in the nation, Maine lags in participation in post-secondary education. One of the reasons is that many Maine students grow up in families that simply have not had any experience with higher ed. Another is that too many families that aspire to higher education are stymied by the cost. Lifetime earnings for those with a college degree are as much as $1 million higher than those without. Post-secondary education gives displaced adult workers a fresh start and a chance to move ahead. It is an incubator also for the next generation of entrepreneurs and a new economy. But the economic statistics tell only part of the story. When we lend a hand to those who have the motivation to pursue higher education, but lack the means or the experience or the inspiration, they give back. TRIO provides the life-changing academic and support services that make dreams come true. Thank you for your dedication to our TRIO students.
Thank you, Senator Collins. That was fantastic. And we really appreciate your leadership on TRIO issues in the Senate. And so thank you so much. So now let's hear from the House co-chairs of the Congressional TRIO Caucus. We have Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Milwaukee, who is herself a TRIO alumna from Student Support Services at Marquette University. And interestingly enough, our president of COE, Maureen Hoyler, was her TRIO staff member at Marquette a few years ago. So the circle remains unbroken. And I would like to also introduce Talia Rosen. She is our staff liaison, the lead Democratic House staff member for the TRIO Caucus, and she is the Education Legislative Assistant for Congresswoman Moore. Talia, would you like to give a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. Feel free to email me if you want to join the caucus.
Thanks, Talia. Okay, well, great. So with that, Congresswoman Moore.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Gwen Moore, and I am so excited to discuss TRIO, which are near and dear to my heart. TRIO programs provide supportive resources for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, giving low-income individuals, first-generation college students, and individuals with disabilities opportunities to thrive. You know, I don't know where I would be without TRIO, but I know I wouldn't be in Congress. When I was a poor single mother, I used TRIO to pursue my educational opportunity at Marquette University. It's why I'm so excited and so proud to be supporting this important program, because being a member of Congress means that I can now pay it forward and support the program that for so long sustained me. Everyone deserves a fair shot at receiving an education. And TRIO takes important steps towards doing just that for our most vulnerable students. We must continue providing robust funding for TRIO. That's why I am so proud to be part of the TRIO Caucus, and why I'm so proud to keep fighting to level the playing field for our students.
Thank you, Congresswoman Moore. Fantastic. And our fourth and final congressional speaker will be Congressman Mike Simpson from the great state of Idaho. He is the House Republican co-chair of the Congressional TRIO Caucus. And his education legislative assistant is Katie Myers, joining us by audio. Katie, would you like to say a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. It is great to be here with you all today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for your leadership on TRIO. We really appreciate your and the Congressman's championship for this program. And let's hear from Congressman Mike Simpson.
I'm honored to join you today to help kick off another great Congress for the federal TRIO programs. We know that higher education is a key pillar of strong communities. However, not all students have the tools they need to chart a path to a diploma. The federal TRIO programs fill this gap by helping first-generation and low-income students navigate the world of college admissions through graduation and beyond. I've seen the benefits of these programs firsthand in Idaho, and I'm always inspired by the stories of TRIO participants in my district. I want to invite all interested members and staff to learn more about the TRIO Caucus and find out why we say TRIO works.
That is so good. I have my button in my drawer. I need to go get it out for this briefing. Thank you, Congressman Simpson. That was fantastic. And thank you again to all the congressional staff members and TRIO alumni who are here joining us. So with that, let's take it to the next stage of our presentation here, where our Executive Vice President, Kim Jones, Esquire, will be giving an overview and history of the federal TRIO programs. I'm going to put in the chat, many folks have asked, where are my TRIO programs in my member of Congress's state or district? Here we have the latest data, so you can look up exactly which institutions of higher ed and nonprofits receive TRIO grants in your own state and district. Check this out. Okay, and with that, Kim.
Good morning. Thanks so much. Let us dig into an overview of the TRIO programs and the history. Before we really get into each of the programs and how they operate and how they're successful, we wanted to just give you an overview of the context for the creation of TRIO. If you really look at the decade leading up to the formation of TRIO, you'll see that it was a time of unrest in our country. We were moving forward as far as working to integrate the educational system. You had the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Board of Education, which mandated that schools systems act with all deliberate speed to integrate. However, as you can see, as the timeline continues, there needed to be continued federal intervention to make that happen. And so you had federal troops escorting students into high school, into Arkansas. You had a 6-year-old being escorted into first grade in New Orleans. Also, beyond what was happening in the educational realm, there continued to be social unrest. So everything from the Montgomery bus boycott to the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Of course, you had events such as the murder of the 4 young girls at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, to the assassination of President Kennedy, which rocked the globe in November of 1963. All of this really set the stage for new legislation to be passed to really turn the tide and create the will, if you would, nationally to really usher in some changes and lay the groundwork for not just TRIO, but other programs to help level the playing field, as it were, for not just people of color, but people of disadvantaged economic backgrounds and so on. And so, of course, continuing on, there were still struggles. You see Bloody Sunday happened. You had the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, but you also see acts of progress. We have the Civil Rights Act of '64 and so on. If we can move to the next slide. So in the latter end of the 1960s, when President Lyndon Johnson took office, the groundwork had been laid to introduce a number of programs to help eradicate poverty. And so in that era, you saw the proliferation of new programs like the Job Corps, like Head Start, and ultimately our TRIO programs. The next slide, we're gonna skip over. If you have time later on, we have the link there. There's a wonderful clip from remarks he gave to Congress where he discusses his own experience as a school teacher at a small Mexican-American school and his awareness that the children at that school, though they were very young, knew that they were unliked and they knew that they were poor. And so his intention to now use his position as president to make a difference for their children. It's a very beautiful, moving speech, but in the interest of time, we won't watch that clip. But as we move ahead, we talked about the Civil Rights Act of '64. Let's get into some of the legislation that formally ushered in TRIO. So in 1964, we had the Economic Opportunity Act, and that's where you see the first appearance of one of what would become the TRIO programs. And that would be the Upward Bound program, which is arguably the most well-known of the TRIO programs. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, we will address each of the programs, the description of the programs, how they're different from each other and how they're successful. At this moment though, we'll just talk about their history. So we'll get more detailed in just a moment. So in 1964, you have Upward Bound. The following year, the Higher Education Act is authored. And within that act, there was a desire to help more young people get into college. But of course, previously, it had only been people who were from more wealthy backgrounds who'd been going to college. And the college presidents had said to Congress, well, where are we supposed to find these talented young people who you want us to bring to college? And so they created a program called Talent Search to find exceptionally talented, exceptionally needy students. And that was the second TRIO program. Next slide. In 1968, you had the first reauthorization of the Higher Education Act, and that moved Upward Bound from the Office of Economic Opportunity into what was then called the Office of Health, Education, and Welfare, the precursor to the Department of Education. And then there was the establishment of a new program for undergraduates called Special Services for Disadvantaged Students. It just rolls right off the tongue. Today, that's what we know as Student Support Services. These three programs, Talent Search, Upward Bound, and Student Support Services, were placed together under Title IV of the Higher Education Act under the name Special Programs for Students from Disadvantaged Backgrounds. They were placed under Title IV with financial aid because these programs were believed to be the complement to the direct aid to students. And they were the first effort to address the non-financial barriers, the social and cultural pieces that prevented students from achieving success in higher education. Informally at that time, the programs began to be known as TRIO because they were a trio of supportive services. Next slide, please. In subsequent reauthorizations, you had the proliferation of additional programs. So in the 1972 reauthorization, you had the creation of the Educational Opportunity Centers. Also that year, the Department of Education used the Upward Bound Authority to begin administering what we call the Veterans Upward Bound Program to address the needs of Vietnam veterans who were returning from their service. In 1980, just as a point of information, the TRIO community by that point, the educators who were working in the program had begun to really organize and had gotten the ear of members of Congress, particularly in the House side, and they were able to unify all the criteria because at that time there were several different metrics being used to determine who was eligible for TRIO, and there wasn't a real uniformity. And so a decision was put forward and accepted by the House Education and Labor Committee and ultimately by the Senate as well to make the criteria across all programs that it was going to focus on students who were low income, meaning their income level was at 150% of poverty thresholds, and or first generation to college. And so within our TRIO programs, there's some variation within, but by and large, 2/3 of all of our students are going to be both low income and first generation, with the final 1/3 being either or. In 1986, you had the creation of the McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program. And then in 1992, the name was formally changed to the Federal TRIO programs. Also, the Department of Education began administering the Upward Bound Math Science Program. Next slide. So at this point, let's talk a little bit about each of the individual programs. And it's best to understand them in three different sections. We have our pre-college youth programs, our pre-college adult programs, and our undergraduate programs. So for pre-college youth, let's start with Talent Search. That serves the youngest set of students. It starts with students as young as the 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And it's a low-cost early intervention program that provides academic, career, and financial aid counseling. It takes students on college visits and provides assistance with everything from SAT, college entrance exams, admission applications, etc. The most recent information we have from the Department of Education has shown that of college-ready seniors who participate in Talent Search, 80% of them go directly from high school into post-secondary ed. Next slide. Next, we have Upward Bound, which again is probably the most well-known because it was first, but then also the thing that really distinguishes Upward Bound from the other programs is that it has a very intensive model that is known for not just weekly Saturday academies where students are getting intensive instruction around a number of academic subjects, but they're also participating in a 6-week residential component where they're actually living on a college campus and getting the experience of being a college student while they're in high school. And it's a very intense experience, and they have very strong relationships as a result of mentoring as well as the academic component and the other attendant supports around preparing for college, college essays, entrance exams, financial aid, et cetera, et cetera. Using a very similar model as the Upward Bound Math Science program, the differentiation there is that those programs, their instruction focuses more on STEM and lab science, and it tends to focus on students, getting them interested in a STEM curriculum for when they go into post-secondary education and also pushing STEM careers. The latest information from the Department of Education has shown us that 85% of students who participate in both Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science go directly from high school into college. Next slide. Turning to our pre-college adult programs, these are the programs that are going to be serving adults who, well, in the case of educational opportunity centers, this is a program that is really an outreach program. It's designed to address the needs of adults who, let's say, have not finished high school, or perhaps they finished high school but either have not begun college or have started but dropped out and want to go back. So it's really an opportunity for someone who's been disconnected from the education system to find out how they get back into the pipeline. And so how do I, for instance, what do I need to do to get my GED? What forms do I need to fill out as far as financial aid and applications? Just getting people back into the process. And the EOC programs serve about 1,000 clients a year, and they very often partner with the local community, everything from workforce development boards to public libraries to really get people back on the academic path. And our information from the Department of Education shows that more than half of college-ready participants who participated in the 2013-2014 program year did enroll in post-secondary education. And so we're very pleased to see all the work that EOC is doing. Next slide. For our veterans, we have the Veterans Upward Bound program, which again is pre-college. And so this is a program that really helps our military servicemen and women avail themselves to the benefits that they've earned by helping them reacclimate themselves to the classroom before going to post-secondary ed. Very often people turn to the military because they cannot afford college. But by the time they get back, they are both academically and socially very distanced from higher education. So this program allows them, first of all, puts them in a peer group with others who've had a similar experience. And it helps them get their prerequisites to do the necessary work to prepare them to enroll in post-secondary education. There is unfortunately not a great amount of data, but we do know that if you do comparative studies looking at how low-income first-generation veterans fare in earning 6-year degrees, if you compare that against our Veterans Upward Bound participants, there is a notable difference, 19% versus 27%. Next slide. Then finally, we have our undergraduate programs. Student Support Services. It is the largest and most expansive undergraduate program for low-income first-generation college goers, and that is our retention and completion program. And again, it's everything from, I don't know how to talk to my professor, I'm not getting along with my roommate, I don't know how to register for classes, to these are the courses you need to take in order to be eligible to transfer to your major at the state university. Very comprehensive at both 2-year and 4-year institutions. And within Student Support Services, there are specialized programs that focus on students who have STEM majors, students who are veterans, students with disabilities, ESL students, and so on. We're very pleased, next slide, that the Department of Education actually did do a longitudinal study of SSS that was published in 2019 that did show statistically significant results as a result of students participating in the program in terms of credits accumulated, GPAs earned, and most importantly, retention and graduation. And so I'm getting close to my time, so I'm gonna proceed, but as you can see, there was a notable difference for students of both 2-year and 4-year institutions when compared against peers of similar backgrounds and first generation status in terms of retention and graduation. Next slide. Finally, we have the McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program, also an undergraduate program that is designed to prepare low-income, first-generation, and underrepresented students for study in the postgraduate sector, mostly to, or primarily to diversify academia. And so these are our next generation of professors and researchers. And there's, again, limited information on the statistics. There has not, to my knowledge, been a formal study, but we do know information reported by our McNair programs that 72% of McNair scholars who obtain their bachelor's degree to enroll into postgraduate study within 3 years of graduating. And then there's approximately an 84% persistence rate. So these are the folks who are going on. And we literally just last year honored a young man who was at AstraZeneca working on their vaccine for the coronavirus. And so these are the folks who are changing the world. Next slide, please. So today, TRIO serves more than 800,000 students. And as you can see there, demographically, we serve students from every cultural background. We are located in approximately every congressional district. There's only a handful, literally, where there is not a TRIO program present. Our programs include 7,000 students with disabilities and 6,000 military veterans. Next slide. And because we are such a wide presence and we look very much like every community we serve, we are so proud that we have strong bipartisan, bicameral support. And I won't go through all the pictures here, but hopefully you recognize some of the faces. These are just some of the congressional supporters we have from across each aisle and from across both sides of the Capitol who have seen for themselves that TRIO works and have lent their support to the programs both locally and here in Washington, DC. Next slide. And of course, we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the impact of our alumni. TRIO, during its tenure, has produced more than 5 million college graduates. And here are just a few of the notables, the famous faces. Of course, we have Oscar winner Viola Davis, an Upward Bound alum, astronaut Jose Hernandez, the Student Support Services graduate, Harry Lee Williams, former president of Delaware State, who's now the president of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, ABC What Would You Do host John Quinones, an Upward Bound graduate. These are the famous people. We have so many others who will never be famous, but who are changing lives all over in their communities and hometowns. Next slide. We do have some notables who have walked the halls of Capitol Hill, former Republican Congressman Henry Bonilla, who served from 1993 to 2007, representing the 33rd District of Texas, former Congressman Albert Wynn of Maryland. And we currently, next slide, we currently have 5 alumni serving in the US Congress. The freshman class president, Nikema Williams, the new senator from Georgia, the first Black senator from Georgia, Raphael Warnock, is an Upward Bound alum. Of course, Congresswoman Moore, along with Congressman Stephen Horsford and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And again, if we have time, if people want to know, we can certainly go back and give you their TRIO bona fides. So with that, next slide, I'm happy to turn things over to my colleague, Stephanie Salvador, who will conduct a staffer panel with some more notable alumni, your peers who are now engaged on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that wonderful overview of the TRIO programs. And thank you all so much for joining us this morning for our TRIO Alumni Congressional Staffer panel discussion. I will be joined by 4 wonderful TRIO alum. If you all, TJ Lucas, Alora, Noah Yantis, and Noel Perez, if you would like to unmute yourselves at this moment and introduce yourselves to the audience. Just state your name, your title, your office, and the TRIO program that you participated in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alora Irvin. I'm from Midwest City, Oklahoma. I currently work for Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. I'm his deputy legislative assistant. I primarily focus on education, but I also handle health, education, labor, pension policy along with my colleague. And I actually came through the student support services program and then went back to work for the student support services program prior to coming to Congress.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alora. You are truly one of us. Next up, please, Noah.
Hey everyone, Noel Perez. I am the Director of Outreach for the Senate Democratic Steering and Outreach Committee, and I attended Cal State University East Bay. I also am an alumnus of the Student Support Services. I did the Excel program there. Just glad to be on.
Great. Thank you so much, Noel. Next up, Noah.
Hi there, I'm Noah Yantis. I'm Congressman Jim Hagedorn's legislative director. I attended Illinois College and I did the student support services. They had a special program called the Yates program, and I was in that program freshman year and did a number of programs on my time on campus. And I handle education for the congressman as well. So part of my responsibilities is LD. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us today, this morning, Noah. And last but certainly not least, TJ Lucas.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is TJ Lucas. I work for Senator Joe Manchin from the great state of West Virginia. I handle his education, housing, including his appropriations subcommittee work on the Labor HHS subcommittee and the THUD subcommittees. I am a former Upward Bound participant. I did all 4 summers, including the bridge year at Pikeville College, which is now the University of Pikeville in Eastern Kentucky. But it was interesting enough, the program was actually sponsored by the Mingo County Commission, which was in actually West Virginia. So we hopped the border to attend the summer program. So glad to be with everyone today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, TJ, and all of you for being with us this morning and for your support of TRIO programs. So I'm going to dive right into just a quick question and answer panel. And anybody who wants to answer the question, please feel free to jump in and respond. So what was a pivotal moment for you as a TRIO student? Can you give us a little bit more background on your experience?
Hey everyone, I can go first. The funny thing, as I was like reflecting on my time as a TRIO student, you know, I come from a background where my mother was went to the 6th grade. My dad actually was a 3rd grade dropout, and which is wild to think about. But the actual first time I stepped foot on a college campus was when I made an appointment to see my counselor for, you know, Excel, the Student Support Services program. And it was literally before orientation, before the first day of class. And, you know, they wanted to make sure we got in there way before to prepare ourselves. So I just felt, you know, to this day, forever grateful where she put me on track and was able to get my, you know, things in order to be successful. So I was ready on day one, and that just kind of set the tone for me of my relationship with her that I actually had with her for 4 years, and obviously successful enough to graduate and come to Congress.
Wow, thank you, Noel. That's a true testament to the power of TRIO programs. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Would anyone else care to respond to the question, or does anybody else want to share?
Yeah, sure. This is Alora. I would say I had 2 pivotal moments during TRIO. My first one was when they sent out the application for research projects at our school. And my TRIO mentor, as well as, you know, you just have staff in the office that you consider your mentor, even if they're not your designated mentor on paper. But they were like, oh my gosh, you should apply for this grant. It'll help you basically be able to get money every week, as well as it'll give you an opportunity to work with your professors and do a project. And in turn, that project led me to go to NCUR. I kind of forgot what the abbreviation was, but it was basically the National Undergraduate Conference for Research. And so that was big for me. I was never aware of like what research really was and how it would impact my career. So that was one of the biggest moments for me because that was my first time actually riding a plane as well. And this is like I want to say like my sophomore or junior year in college. So it was a big deal for me to actually like go somewhere by myself without my family to a conference all by myself. And I met so many different people. And it was all because of Trio. Trio is the one who got me involved. They helped me connect with my faculty professor who would help me with my research. They actually helped me because I was in there on the computer all the time, running those equations, getting my stuff together. They helped me print my poster. It was perfect. And I want to say that my second pivotal moment was coming back, of course, to Trio and being able to work with the students. But not only that, them influencing me to go and get my master's. At that time, the McNair program had just went away from my school. So the funding wasn't necessarily there, but Trio helped me work with my faculty in my school to get the scholarships that I needed. They helped me understand my loan paperwork because I did have to pay, get some loans. But when I came back to work for them, since I was working for the university gave me a 50% off waiver for my entire master's program. And all of this was because of Trio helping me understand the ropes. My mom didn't go to college, my dad didn't go to college, so they weren't able to explain this to me. But having my mentors there, seeing them actually graduate before my eyes with their master's. So when it was time for me to do my master's, they were like, you see, I only did it in 2 years. You've done the research. That's exactly what you're going to be doing in your master's program. So you can just carry on with that research. So I would say those are my two pivotal moments.
Wow, Laura, that's really impressive and really great. The Trio helped you get through your master's program and where you are today. Again, another great testament to the work of the Trio programs in your lives. So next question that I have for you guys is, what did Trio staff advisors share that you didn't already know about applying to college and completing your degree?
I'm happy to jump in here. There was so much that I had no idea as a first generation college student about applying to college, but and just a little bit of background on me. I was in the foster care system. I was ultimately adopted by my paternal grandparents after a few years, and my grandmother always wanted the opportunity to go to college, but born during the Great Depression, that was just never a realistic opportunity for her. And so I knew that I had to go to college. I just didn't necessarily know how to go to college. And so Upward Bound really gave me the opportunities and the educational resources to sit down and what is the FAFSA and how to fill that out. And where I come from in the small coal mining communities in southern West Virginia, people have a real tendency not to want to share information with the government. And so, there was a lot of, back and forth, and my Trio advisors worked with my grandparents to tell them how important this was to get through that. And, they helped me walk through, how to get letters of support, how to sit down and actually fill out the Common Core application. So that way I could apply to multiple universities at one time. And then more importantly, though, I'd always had an affinity for DC. Never really thought I'd have the opportunity to live here. During one of our summer program trips, after we completed the summer academies, they actually planned a trip to DC and actually took me to Georgetown, George Washington, and American, along with everyone else in the group as well. And so that's the first time I got my real experience on a college campus outside of West Virginia. And so I really owe my opportunity and at least the access point there and the support on the front end to Trio and the staff that was critical to help get me to where I am today.
Thank you for sharing, TJ. Anyone else?
I'll hop in.
Yep.
I'll hop in as well. Yeah. So my Trio experience was sort of a little different. It wasn't. I more found out about Trio when I was applying to Illinois College, and they sent out a pamphlet saying, oh, because your parents only went to community college or you're first generation, which I didn't even know at the time. I thought community college was considered, you know, you're going to college. So this program, basically, we were able to come on campus 10 days early. We got a feel for campus, what it was like to basically take notes in a classroom and learn how a college atmosphere works. My campus was only 900 kids, so it was small already. But our Yates group was about 15 to 20. And so once the freshmen actually came on at the end of our program during welcome week, we already had a functioning knowledge of campus and how everything's going to run. So that really put me on a leg up going forward. And then TRIO was especially helpful applying for internships, which actually I did the Washington Center internship program, which was advised to me by my TRIO advisor. And then that's what turned into from internship to job with Mr. Molinar from Michigan. So without TRIO, I literally wouldn't be in DC as a staffer. So complete thanks to that program.
Great. Thank you so much, Noah, for sharing that. One more question for you guys. Some of you may have already touched on this, but for those of you who haven't answered, can you share what was one of the most impactful services you took advantage of with your TRIO programs?
I would probably have to say tutoring. Tutoring was one of my biggest, like I was always in tutoring, probably at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then also the computer lab, both of those. I think it was just me sitting down, like, as you can see, I'm here at work, but I like to be at a desk. It helps me feel focused. It helps me operate better. And then of course the financial aid services, like the assistance with understanding financial aid, that was probably the most impactful of all of the services, because they pretty much educated me on what a freshman package looks like, all the way to what it looks like when you get to like your master's or doctorate program, what the financial aid package is going to look like and how you need to operate, and what an unsubsidized loan is versus a subsidized loan. I actually, when I was a mentor during my time in undergrad for the program, I used to have to host the financial aid. We used to do like workshops and stuff for our students. And when you work for the program, even when you're an undergrad, like if you're a mentor, you have to host different events. And so we did like a financial literacy program with our bank on the campus. We partnered with them and we did a whole bunch around financial literacy and financial aid. And so I think that was super helpful for me.
Thank you, Laura. I'm sure a lot of your peers can relate to some of the things that you touched upon. If anybody wants to add to anything that Laura already said, please feel free to jump in and contribute.
For me, it would just a counselor. I think that was the biggest service, because she was culturally competent. She was always available. She was supportive. She was willing to address and give her thoughts when it came to a number of things. And I know that I leaned on her heavy, and I would see her often, and she would just be there for me, because because of the program, she had a small amount of folks that she would work with. And I just remember throughout my 4 years, when I was talking to my friends that were not part of the program, they would complain about that they just couldn't see anyone on just the regular counselors, that, each counselor had thousands of students, and, where they just couldn't connect, they couldn't get good advice, or it just wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't work out for them. So I just realized how fortunate I was throughout those years of having my counselor just available for me, helping me in every step of the way, along with internships and scholarships, just a number of things about classes, and that to me was everything.
Thank you, Noelle. And you mentioned a key word there, culturally competent. So a lot of the TRIO directors themselves actually were TRIO alum. A prime example is Laura. She was a TRIO alum, and then she herself was a TRIO director. So a lot of the times the counselors can relate to what the students are going through, having been through it themselves. Which actually leads me to my next question, specifically for Alora about this, because I would like her to emphasize a little bit more. Alora, could you tell us a little bit more about your work as a TRIO SSS staff member once you were on the other side and you went from alumni to staff, and what your role was in serving the students?
I was a one-stop shop for everything. I probably when I left TRIO to do my final project, which was like 2 months before I was literally plucked by my congressman to come here to Washington, D.C. I was a one-stop shop. I did their financial aid. I helped them with their schedule. Even after they saw their schedule, like the administrator who was through the school, they just came with me to double check it. If they were having a problem at home, I helped them solve it. If they were having food insecurity, I helped them solve it. If they were having problems in class, I mean, most times I would try to make sure that they did it themselves, me just telling them how to do it. But of course, there's times that, you know, you can touch base with those people as well, because since I worked for the university, I either, especially for those who actually had like my same major when I was in school. And of course, we all had the same common core. So you kind of know how to tell them how to navigate those systems. And of course, like you said, when you said culturally competent, we were all closer in age, except some of my students, I did have a good amount of adult students as well, because the college that I went to was somewhat of a commuter college because it was in the middle of a town, as most colleges are. But like I said, just being a big one-stop shop for everything, I think one of the big 360s for me that just blows me away to this day is TRIO. As you know, certain TRIO programs use their funds. They can have you fundraise, but they can also use their funds as well to take you places and do cultural experiences. So every year we did a huge fundraiser to contribute to, of course, our grant money. And we came here to Washington, D.C. to see Representative Tom Cole. I was literally just showing my coworkers my pictures. I was like, look at me when I was in college coming to Congress. And so getting here to Congress, I remember I was walking down the hall and I saw Senator Tom Cole, and I'm like, I said Senator, but Representative, I stopped him in the hallway. I was like, do you remember me? And he was like, well, you look familiar, but I don't know. I meet a lot of people. But as soon as I told him who he was like, oh my gosh, it's so great for you to be here. Funny enough, while I was that staff member, my younger sister ended up coming into the program. And so we ended up, while I was a staffer, I ended up doing that same trip that they did with me, bringing me here to Congress to meet with our TRIO advocates here in Congress. And I was able to bring my little sister here. I was able to show all of the students things that we did. And, you know, everything here in DC is free. So, you know, we're able to take them to the Smithsonian's, up and down the National Mall, and just different places here in DC. And that was a huge moment for me, because it was like, wow, I remember when they did this for me and how blown away I was by being in Congress, and then to then be able to bring students here. And so then to have students come here and visit me, because I do education policy that are TRIO students. Funny enough, when our TRIO students came here from South Carolina, we just so happened to have Benjamin Watson in the office, and my boss came in to like meet with them, but he was like, oh, I want y'all to meet someone. And so like the students that were here from South Carolina were able to, one, speak to the senator one-on-one, but also get to meet Benjamin Watson. We were all in there taking pictures. We spent, and also Dr. Clark from South Carolina State University was here. So they got to meet 3 prominent Black men at that time. And it was only 2 young ladies, and then it was like 6 young Black men in that group that came here with TRIO. So that was just huge for me to see how like TRIO just keeps on giving, if that makes sense, even in your afterlife.
Yes, yes, I love that. What a great way to end. TRIO just keeps on giving. So speaking about giving back, What advice would you give if you were recommending TRIO to a younger student? This is going to be our last question, and it's open-ended to anybody who wants to answer.
I'll let one of the guys start.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? My AirPods cut out for a second.
Yeah, certainly. So what advice would you give to a younger student in if you were recommending TRIO to them?
Oh, okay, I'll take that. My biggest thing was try to establish a solid relationship with your advisor. So at Illinois College, we had an advisor program. We had a mentor program where if you were a freshman, you were paired with a senior, but their process didn't exactly work out with my mentor because we were on the completely opposite ends of the political spectrum, which was fine, but we also didn't like the same types of things. And so, I mean, I liked golf and sports and all that, and he didn't. And so I actually got a better relationship with my academic advisor. I still keep in touch with him. And so he would check in with me because campus was so small. You know, if I was skipping class to go play golf, he would know because one of the professors would text him. And so he would call me and like basically keep me. He's like, whoa, like, oh, how was class this afternoon? And I'm like, oh, it was fine. Oh, really? Because I'm pretty sure you were at the golf course because I talked to your professor. And I was like, okay. And so he had extremely high expectations for me on campus. I was extremely involved, internships on campus, sports classes, et cetera. And so he really pushed me to be better, be a better student, be more involved and whatnot. So I was thankful for my relationship with the counselor and even some of the other professors. I mentioned the Yates program. When I got on campus, I found out one of the professors who was an advisor in TRIO on campus actually went to my high school, and his dad was my sports photographer for like 10 years. His mom and my mom still go to church. Like, this is the small central Illinois world that we kind of all lived in. And so I have had a bond with him as well because we could reconnect over high school and Arthur and the area that we grew up in. And so I had established a close relationship with him as well. So TRIO, you know, for a student that's currently in TRIO or getting ready, like considering it, really push those relationships and have those solid to take you to the next step on campus, because it'll pay dividends, especially.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. Anyone else care to chime in really quickly with the few minutes that we have remaining?
On my end, I would just say, you know, earlier the presentation, we were able to go through all the services, all the programs that TRIO offers. And, you know, I think that I did not participate in, you know, before college. So I think my advice would just be to be aggressive when it comes to finding out what's available and just take advantage of it. So, you know, I would have loved to do certain programs, and, you know, we all know that it's with limited of resources, it's hard to reach everyone that's eligible. So, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit of effort, but, you know, I think with more focus and more resources, I think we're, you know, more folks can take advantage of these programs and be successful.
Definitely, definitely. And thank you, Noelle, for leaving us with that thought. I'm going to first ask everybody to please give a round of applause. So thank you to the wonderful panelists that we had. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us this morning and for sharing your TRIO stories. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate your support of TRIO programs and for giving back to those who follow in our footsteps in the next generation. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to my colleague, Jonathan Elkin, who is going to talk a little bit more about the breakout rooms that we will be going into next. Jonathan, all yours.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So in a minute, we will be joining into 4 breakout rooms where you'll get a chance to chat with the TRIO alumni panelists who you just heard from in a smaller group setting, as well as other TRIO alumni who are currently Capitol Hill staffers, as well as COE staff and some of the TRIO Caucus co-chair staff. So it'll be a great opportunity to meet each other. A couple quick housekeeping things. By popular demand, we will be sharing the the PowerPoint for today, and so I'm going to put it in the chat. We'll also send this out by email. Also, if you could go ahead, as we're getting ready for the breakout sessions, if you could put your Zoom name as your name and your affiliation. So, for example, Stephanie Salvador with COE in parentheses, or from TRIO alumni who are on our panel, and some new ones too. We had a really great conversation in our group. But just wanted to thank everyone again for their partnership and for joining this briefing today to learn more about TRIO. We really appreciate especially the alumni who joined our staff panel today and who joined in the breakout rooms. So let's give a warm Zoom round of applause for joining us. We really appreciate working with you. One last chance for questions. Any other questions for the full group? Okay, so we look forward to working together this year. Here are contact information for our government relations team at the Council for Opportunity in Education. And we really appreciate you being here with us, and thank you again for joining. As promised, we will send out the presentation deck as well as some of the information we shared in the chat. And we look forward to working with you this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Much.